something you only see once a year, or is it less extreme than that?
No, it's definitely unique, and they've done a really really good job over the years of being able to create their own niche, and it's built off of a lot of option principles, but and then the way that their style of play, you got to figure out how to attack it, right? But they do a really good job of recruiting the right personnel to run that system, and they've been highly effective. They've scored a bunch of points. They've had a lot of yards. They can run the ball. They can pass the ball. So it's something that you don't necessarily have to change wholesale like you would preparing for an option, because that's completely different. But they do force you to be assignment sound, like an option offense. And if you're careless with the ball, you could limit your possession. So philosophically, there's some philosophical approach to it, but in terms of the play concepts, it's very similar. They run a lot of zone concepts with the zone read, and then they can spread you out and 10 personnel sets. So it's still similar concepts that you see, but the style in terms of the pace at which they run their zone is different than what you typically see.
Their running back, Claiborne,
Mm-hmm.
out of what does he do well? He's a 804 kid. What's his skill set?
Yeah, so he's very, very patient and explosive, and he runs bigger than his listed size. So he's a violent guy. He's got really, really good feet, explosive, and then he can finish. He can finish runs, and then they do a good job, out of the backfield too, of getting those guys involved and getting the ball out of the backfield. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so he's still day to day, and we're hopeful to get him back soon. Again, we're coming off of he had ankle surgery in the off season, and then early in camp got rolled up again on that ankle, and so it's a day to day to where we can get him to a point to where he can tolerate the discomfort. So, man, hopeful, but again, we're going to go at the pace in which he feels confident and comfortable to be able to play at a high level.
The, the program hasn't won an ACC opener since I think 2020.
Oh wow.
You guys are looking to be 2-0 for the first time in 10 years. How much in your tenure? How much progress would it show just from that regard to start 1-0 in the league, 2-0 overall? If you guys get a win on Saturday.
I appreciate the education on some of the numbers. I didn't realize, because again I kind of just focus on what I can control. But that's some good information. So you helped me out for maybe my Friday night meeting right there with some bulletin board material. But I think this is a great test from a program standpoint. Since I stepped into this role, I tell you, Dave Clawson has been awesome. Just to watch his leadership, at the coaches level in the ACC, with the way he conducts himself, the way he leads meetings, and then, I've been able to have conversation with him, and you look at what he's been able to do with that program, the amount of wins, in this conference is up at the top, in terms of the last 10 years or so. So, for us, I think it's a program, type of game, because we get to evaluate where we are, because they play extremely hard. They're very, very well coached. The guys have a lot of confidence. They understand the identity of who they are, and those are all things that we're trying to establish here. And in terms of our team goals, our second goal is to win the ACC opener. So it's extremely important to us to win the first game in conference. And so some of those other things that you educated me on will be nice for us to accomplish, but our focus is to go out and treat every game like it's the most important game. But also, we understand the importance of winning the ACC opener, and it would be awesome for us to be able to play our best game, on the road against a very good football team that I think when you watch them on tape, they're much better than where a lot of people have predicted them within our league. They return a lot of veteran guys on their defensive front and their offensive front. I know they're working out the quarterback situation with a couple of older guys, but their older guys are experienced. This is a very experienced football team, and they play complementary football all three phases. So it would be a good test, from a program standpoint, in addition to being the ACC opener.
You have a very veteran and experienced defense. How does that help you in games adapting? A couple of the guys mentioned that like Richmond was running one of their counter plays different than y'all had prepared, but you were able to kind of diagnose it and adjust. on the fly. How much easier is it when you have older players to do that?
Great question. So when you got guys that have experience, the first thing is they're a little bit more poised, right? So they're used to having to make adjustments, and so there's less panic. And because there's less panic and more poise, it's easier to have the conversations necessary, and then they can make the adjustment quickly. Whereas a younger guy, just naturally because of inexperience, they need repetition, right? So they need to kind of go through the teaching progression. They have to see it on the board, then they have to see it several times in practice. But when you have veteran guys, you can just have conversation, draw it on the board, and then they conceptually can make the adjustment, and then be able to go out on the field and in real time, make that adjustment. So it starts with poise, and then confidence, and then just the ability to effectively communicate. And that's one of the things, when you're developing young players, is first just teaching them the vernacular to be able to talk, especially when you're in battle, right? Everybody needs to be speaking the same language. And so when you start talking about, okay, it's a counter, all right, well, if you say we're going to spill it or we're going to box it, they know exactly what you mean. Where a young guy, he might be, okay, we'll spill it, box, what does that mean? All right, what shoulder do I strike with, coach? What's the technique? Whereas you say, hey, no, hey, we see this play, next time we're going to spill it in this coverage, right? Or this call, we're going to box it in this call. They know exactly what you mean. They know the technique, and then they understand the big picture and why we're making that adjustment, and that allows them to play a lot faster.
Does the tablet and the helmet communication, does that factor in there?
The helmet communication, you're only got one guy. So only one guy is receiving the communication on the field at one time. So I don't know if that aspect of the new technology does, but the tablets definitely help, because then now it's you add another part of the teaching progression, right? Especially for the younger guys, because you can show them in real time, right, the video, and then you also can draw on the tablet as well. So the tablet definitely helps, and we're trying to figure it out too. That was the first opportunity. We didn't have any opportunities last year to use it, so we're still getting used to it, but got good returns from the staff, just in terms of how much it was a nice added addition on the sideline.
You told the team during camp that last year they showed they could take a game to the fourth quarter,
Yeah.
and that the next step for the team was to push through and win in the fourth quarter. What's the biggest missing piece, or what was the biggest missing piece last year?
Yeah, I think last year you're teaching them the whole plan, right? So our plan to win, we have 7 components broken down of what we believe it takes to win a game, and then just overall, philosophically as a team, we want to start fast, win the middle 8, and then finish in the fourth quarter. So you're teaching how to start fast, right? Then you're teaching, okay, how to win the middle 8, and then you're trying to teach them to win the fourth quarter. And the biggest thing is it's a mindset. Right, it's a mindset, and then capturing those moments in practice. And so if you were out at practice today, there was a big emphasis, in the last, few periods of practice to emphasize the fourth quarter, making them mindful that this is where it's not just we put our 4 fingers up in the air and we play a video, and like it's a mindset, it's a mentality, and an understanding that this is where we have to have our best, our best focus, our best attention to detail. And that's difficult because it's, you've been playing now for probably 2 hours and 45 minutes, right? You're 60 plays into the game. Man, your body is starting to hurt, right? You kind of can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? The fans have been there for a while, so you're might not be getting as much, energy from the environment. You have to create that yourself, and so it's a mindset more so than anything, and that's been a big point of emphasis for us is transitioning that mindset that when we get to the fourth quarter, that's when we're at our best, and understanding that every possession matters, but possessions in the fourth quarter, like you tell them at halftime, the most unimportant thing in football is the score at halftime, right? What matters is, the score when you get it into the fourth quarter.
At receiver, you had a couple guys make some big plays last week, Malachi Fields, Terrell Harris. How would you evaluate that position after the first game? And then with Chris Tyree, is it a matter of, maybe you need to tweak some things in the offense to get him the ball in better spots, or is it just him needing to make more plays with the opportunities he's got?
Yeah, so overall, what I liked is how they blocked on the perimeter, right? So everyone's going to follow the ball, especially when it's in the air. But I like to see, their commitment to the football team by how they block in the run game. And a lot of the explosive plays that we had in the run game were a result of receivers blocking on the perimeter. So that was the first thing that I was proud of that effort. And now that gives us something to say, hey, this is the minimum of what the expectation is. So overall, I thought as a group they blocked well on the perimeter. They made some big plays. I'll say that, I haven't seen a play like the one Malachi made, that diving play since Mike Williams did it his freshman year versus NC State. It was an unbelievable full extension play, and it's wet. Right, no gloves, man. That was a big time play to be able to come down with that ball, and I thought Malachi took a step, and what made me say that is we threw a couple just spot screens to him, and he's got two defenders. He makes them both miss, and then comes out running, and that's something we've been challenging him to do, man. To just play your size and be such a dominant guy with the ball in your hands. And then it was good to see Trell, make a play, and so overall, I think that the guys are building their confidence, and the chemistry is starting to develop with the quarterback. And Chris, I'm just going to chalk it up to, man, back home in Virginia, wanting to do so well, pressing a little bit, right? And if you look at the balls that he didn't come down with, he takes his eyes off of it because he's ready to run. He wants to go make a big play. So, we're not going to make it a big deal. He knows what he has to do to correct it, and that's just finish the catch before you take off and run, and doesn't change anything in terms of how he fits in our offense, and nothing to tweak in terms of trying to get him the ball. That's one of the great things is when you have multiple threats, you can spread the ball out, and it puts a lot more pressure on the defense. But I anticipate that you'll see Chris bounce back. But I'm just going to chalk it up to, man, he was so amped up and wanting to make a play, especially being back home, in Virginia, and just try to take off running too soon and didn't finish the catch.
Is there a reason you use Clary back on punt return?
Yeah, so Chris was down a little bit in fall camp, and so we alternated the two, and Clary has shown just over the years, and it wasn't just this year, but in the past, if he was available, we put him back there because he's been very, very sure-handed. We know how dynamic, Chris is. And then obviously if you see a guy that's, struggling a little bit, you definitely don't want to put him back there in that situation unless he's ready, because that's a totally different ball that you're catching, a totally different environment when you're looking straight up in the air for 4 seconds and you're concentrating on a ball that's moving on you, and you got guys barreling down. So again, you'll see Chris back there, but it was more so just as the flow of the game, and then obviously when the conditions changed, we wanted Clary back there.
Even though Wake Forest is not a true option team, is it just as important as stopping an option team to shut down the A gap? Is that one of the keys to stopping?
Yeah. So they run a couple of different, what we call zone option, concepts. And so, when it's a 5-man surface, meaning that they don't have the tight end involved in the game, yes, you gotta be able to stop the dive, so to speak, and then have a quarterback player on the zone read concepts. And then they do, some 6-man surfaces where they involve the tight end, where they have the backside C gap accounted for. Now you can go to more of your second level, third level reads. And that's where it's not so much the dive there, as you just got to be a sound on those second level reads. So they pose problems just overall, but you got to be able to stop the A gap, so to speak, or the dive when they hand the ball off. And then you got to be prepared for the quarterback pulling it, and you also got to be prepared for the quarterback, riding the mesh, and they ride the mesh for a long time. It's actually pretty fascinating. As an offensive guy, like I've marveled at it, coach of running backs, it's like, how do you train the running back to be so slow, right? Because literally they kind of skip and walk with it. I've never seen anything like it, but they're phenomenal at it, and they perfected it. But you got to be able to have the run accounted for, and then you have to make sure that you're disciplined and stay in position so that you don't give them the big windows on the back end when the quarterback pulls it to throw it. So really, you want to kind of force the quarterback to become a runner, if that's probably the option that you want the most, because the backs, they do a really good job is they're slow, and then once they get that ball, boom, they're gone. And then they can find the creases. They hide in behind those big offensive linemen, and then you can't find them, and boom, they spit out. So yes, you have to stop the run, but you also got to account for the quarterback, and then you got to be in position on the back end so that they can't, expose you with big windows for the explosive plays downfield.
And you've talked all training camp about winning in the trenches.
That's right.
Can you assess how you guys did on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, so I thought, I thought offensively, they did a good job of creating a new line of scrimmage for the backs to be able to get up a good head of steam. We did give up 2 sacks, but I thought the protection was solid and the sacks were more. The quarterback one should have got rid of the ball in the red zone, and the other one, just having the presence to know that it was a half roll setup. Don't get up the back of your guard that's out there protecting you. But other than that, I thought they did a solid job. And then defensively, I thought that they pushed the pocket better interior wise. And man, we were getting close, but not close enough. So we're gonna have to be much more disruptive. We got to find a way to get to the quarterback when they do drop back. So I saw some improvement, but still challenging the guys, on the defensive front. And then this week, the game is going to be won in the trenches. Right, like just flat out, it's going to be one in the trenches, because in order to slow down, their rushing attack offensively, you got to create a new line of scrimmage. Like their objective is to kind of create a stalemate at the line of scrimmage, right? Because again, when it's run past, they know they can't go beyond 3 yards. Right, so they want to create a stalemate, right, with no penetration, and then let the quarterback make the decision, and the back kind of hides and then spits out wherever he can find a crease. So we're going to have to be more disruptive. We're going to have to create a new line of scrimmage, and then defensively, and they've done a great job over the years. Man, always has been kind of a thorn in my side, being for many years on that side of the division, playing them every year, and man, it was tough because they know their system. Their kids know the system. They recruit to the system, and then they change structure on you, right, quickly, right? They'll stem to different structures right before the snap, and that creates problems, right? Because you go from one identification to another identification, and then they'll line up, and then post-snap, they'll one-gap exchange, right? So then they'll move, right, to those spots, which creates some one-on-ones. So they're really, really good at what they do. They recruit to their system, and as I said earlier, they got a bunch of seniors on that defensive front, and they can play 2 groups. So the game is going to be won in the trenches. Our guys offensively have to catch all the movement that they do, and then defensively we got to find a way to create a new line of scrimmage in their backfield, right, to hopefully disrupt a little bit of the timing on the zone RPO stuff that they do.
Coach, we hadn't really seen Daniel Sparks kick off.
Yeah.
He was putting them like 8 yards deep in the end zone.
Yeah.
Is he doing that consistently in practice, and how does that help that unit with him doing that?
Yeah, so got to be transparent. Man, I was scared to death based off of what was happening during camp. So early on, there's no question about Sparks' leg, man. It's phenomenal. He's got an extremely powerful leg, and so we knew that we wanted him to work on kickoffs, and so when we started practicing kickoffs, we almost couldn't get a kick, like, because he was 10 yards deep, and man, he was coming too fast, and man, he was putting it over here to the left. There was a stretch in our scrimmages where I think we had 4 kicks out of 6 total that went out of bounds, and we were like, oh Lord, what are we gonna do? So we said, Spark, you got to figure it out. So man, we challenged him, and what he did is he shortened his approach. Right, I think he, and that's a great job by him and Drew Meyer and Coach Gaither of figuring out an answer because we knew once if he hit it right, it was going to go deep. But we were having some issues of, man, pulling it to the left. And so when we shortened up, it took a lot of just, it's kind of like your golf swing, right? Like we were pulling it way, way back there. Once we shortened it up, he was able to consistently put him that deep. So I'm really proud of him because he's pulling double duty. And the biggest thing that I didn't want his kickoffs to take away from his punts, because his punts, we feel like if we can protect him, he's a weapon for us.
Twitty seems to bring a little different skill set to tight end than the other guys there. Was his move from receiver something you began thinking about last fall, or was it strictly in the spring? And was it his idea at all, or the coach?
Yeah, so Twitty, that's an interesting one, because I told him, I said, dang, man, when I was at Clemson, I tried to convince you were a tight end. I was coaching tight ends, and I wanted to recruit him as a tight end. He's like, nah, I'm playing wide out. So I ended up, not recruiting him. But we kind of fell into it because this past spring, Tyler wasn't here. He had to finish up at Harvard, and then Sage was coming off the knee, so he wasn't available in the spring. So we needed, body, and he was the next kind of best option because of size. And so, we went into it saying, we'll give this a look this spring and kind of see where it goes. But this isn't necessarily a permanent move. If you want to go back to wide out, you can. And so, he did it in the spring and then came to me and said, Coach, I think this is what I want to do. So it was more his decision. So it was never any pressure to say, hey, we're definitely moving to tight end, but out of necessity to get through practice in the spring, we needed another body, and his just fit the profile. And so I'm excited to him, and it was so awesome to see him, play and then have a couple catches. And you think about Dakota for 2 years, man, he had 2 knee surgeries. Then he had a hamstring, and so he's just the epitome of perseverance. And the way that he battled to be in that position, and he does bring a different skill set, to that room, which we like because it gives us versatility at the tight end position, because we have 4 guys that we can roll in there. They all got a little different skill set. We can be in 12 personnel and have the effectiveness in a run game with certain guys in there, and then from 12 personnel we can also spread out and create the matchups that we want. So I'm excited for Twitty, and he's just only going to get better the more time that he spends at the position.
I'm wondering, what did you guys see when you were recruiting Jam Jackson, who started at corner, and how have you seen him develop? I think you guys were the only power conference school offering
Yeah.
transfer. What did you see?
Yeah, so first of all, the corner recruiting is crazy, right? It's crazy when you look at the portal. They're probably outside of offensive tackle the highest, the biggest biggest demand out there. Everybody needs corners in this day and age with how people throw the football. And he was a guy that when you just evaluated his film, definitely love his length, his willingness to be able to come up and tackle, and we knew also too, taking a guy that's an undergrad transfer for us is you got to get to him early, right? Because once they get into their third year, very difficult to bring them into to UVA, and then truly have an opportunity for them to graduate. Right, and so you can take younger guys, but I'm not going to take a guy that's at a point where I know he doesn't have the eligibility to be able to finish the required credits to graduate. So he kind of fit that mold of a younger guy that had multiple years left, and we knew that if we could get him in our program and get him on our nutrition plan, that his body had growth potential. So it was more potential and upside, and then timing for us is what we saw. But really liked his length, his willingness to tackle, and you saw his skill set as a cover guy. We felt if we could get him here and he's already changed his body. I think he's probably gained about 15 pounds since he got here. Mm-hmm. So you see, we lock them in, when they're in a meeting, like, you can't move. We got you.
You talked about Clary
Yeah.
on Saturday, but just having him, Saker, Corey Thomas, guys that played a lot of college football back there, and Saker talked a little bit about they can move around, kind of switch positions.
That's right.
How much does that kind of help the back end of that defense and kind of shore things up?
It does. It's like having additional coaches on the field, and then you throw Malcolm, into that equation. He's another one that's kind of in that battery of guys that go between the three safety positions. And going back to the earlier question, you can make adjustments quickly. Right, you can communicate things, and then they can pick up things and make adjustments on their own. So it is as a coach, it's where you always want to be. You always want to be in a position where you feel like you got veteran guys, developed guys, but out on the field they can solve problems on their own. Right, they can play off of each other, and so I'm just excited to see the secondary grow as we move forward. Just because again, Clary hasn't played in a year. Corey's coming in from a different institution, and so their chemistry will only get better as the season goes on.
You talked a little about Dakota's perseverance, and Antonio Clary also had to have that perseverance too. What did you kind of see from him like last year when he couldn't play, and how you kind of overcame that to come back and have one of the first hits of the game?
Yeah, I think what you saw was his leadership, right, and that was a great indicator that when he comes back, right, he's going to be ready to go. You worry about a guy that has a season-ending injury. Are they going to go and isolate themselves? Are they going to be in their own head, right? How are they going to handle it? But, man, he handled it the right way, provided leadership, was constantly mentoring and teaching the guys. And, when he got to a point to where he could stand back there, you could see him back there kind of processing everything that was going on. So even though he physically wasn't able to take reps, last year, mentally he was able to take reps. And I still challenged him from a leadership standpoint. Now your role is just a little bit different, but you still got a role on this football team, and your role is to be a mentor and a leader to these younger guys. And man, he came up and gave me a big hug and said, "Man, I haven't played in a year. It felt so good." And just excited for him because again, injury is one of the hardest things to deal with as a football player, because as a football player, you have a mentality that I'm not going to get hurt. I'm the exception to the rule. It's not going to happen to me. That's how you have to train yourself to be able to play this violent game and play it well. So then when it does happen, right, you the first thing you do is you start questioning, why me? Why did this happen? How could this happen? What am I going to do? I'm not going to play. And so you got to really, really have a lot of positive self-talk to get through it. And then you get to a point to where now you can see the value in it. And so the value for him is that it put the game in perspective. So his passion and his appreciation is at a totally different level. And then he maximized, the opportunity to take mental reps and get better, which allowed him to play fast, right? And then provide leadership. And so it's awesome to kind of just watch him and just now, and then it's only gonna grow now because he's playing too, and he's back. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Chris?
Ben Smiley is back on the depth chart. He obviously played on Saturday.
Yep.
How did you think he looked, and how does he kind of help the rotation?
Yeah. So I thought Ben did a good job, considering, the amount of practice that he missed during fall camp with injury. But I thought he played fast, and I saw him trying to improve on some of the, fundamental things that we asked Ben to do. And y'all know since the day I got here, I said he's probably the most talented guy, that we have on the defensive front, and I stand on that. Like he's extremely talented. Where we have to help him is help himself by using technique, because he's very talented and he loves the game. He plays extremely hard. But at times that can get you in trouble, right, if you don't use the right technique. So I saw him being more conscientious, with the reps that he had of trying to use his technique. And so with having him back, now that gives you, a rotation that you feel really, really good about. And I'm excited to get Bryce Carter back too. So Bryce was out with a knee for most of fall camp, but he was turned loose this week and practiced. Not sure how many snaps he'll be ready to play, being that this is his first week of practice. But with Smiley back in the mold, and then TT, and then now Bryce, just gives you some confidence in your rotation, because you got some older guys that have played a little bit of football, and then you can keep Cam and Chico fresh, and then each one brings a different skill set, which creates a change up on the tackles.
Well,
What you got?
Coach, not as many oars on the depth chart for you guys this week. Is that more having to do with just the fact that you saw what you liked on Saturday, or does it have to do with the matchup this week?
A little bit of both. And what I tell all the guys is, man, I want oars at every position, right? As a coach, I want oars at every position because that means that you got depth. The matchup, you know, changes a little bit. We saw some of the things, but man, you'll still see multiple guys out there playing. Man, I wanna play the guys that deserve to play, right? That doesn't mean that it's equal reps for every, you know, guy at every position. But I want the guys that have earned the reps, earned the trust of their coaches in practice to be able to play, and I think that helps our football team, big picture-wise, long-term. You know, we want to play, we want to earn that 13th, 14th game, and in my experience, you know, that to be fresh and to be ready to compete, then you have to play multiple guys, and then again, just going back to the previous question, when you got multiple guys with different skill sets at each position, man, it creates challenges for the defense or the offense to prepare for.